historic cities was hit hard by Matthew overnight. Jerika Duncan in Savannah, Georgia, where flooding is the major concern.
Matthew ripped through Savannah last night. The storm intensified in the early morning hours, dropping several inches of rain. Before the storm really started to make its impact, 75% of people who live in Chatham County, where Savannah is located, evacuated.
I've got a family, 2 little kids here, a wife. We don't want to be in a house when this tree's that big around it and come right through the roof.
The big concern now is flooding. Matthew's storm surge was projected to reach up to 11 feet in some coastal communities. Meanwhile, some of Savannah's streets were submerged before the worst of Matthew even arrived. To the south of us, on the tourist enclave of St. Simon's Island, the beach isn't even visible. And in coastal Brunswick, the streets were flooded long before the most severe storm surge.
That was Jerika Duncan in Savannah,
Florida
Georgia.
took the first blow for Matthew on Friday, and while the storm has moved on, the state is still feeling its effects. Matthew erased part of coastal highway A1A near Daytona Beach. Storm surge coupled with high tide is creating large and destructive waves and flooding along the Atlantic coast. It comes with at least 1 million utility customers without power and a massive cleanup operation about to unfold. Errol Barnett is in hard-hit Jacksonville. Errol, good morning.
Good morning. People here are just waking up to survey the damage this morning. The National Guard is out keeping people from downed power lines in the most dangerous places. But the evacuation order has not yet been lifted. So really all people can do is take in what was an intense day Hurricane Matthew brought with it. The powerful storm slammed the coast here in Jacksonville as wind gusts of up to 75 miles per hour sent sheets of rain sideways. High surf and a strong storm surge sent water pouring into the streets. 500,000 people were told to evacuate, but Narissa Hickson chose to stick it out.
I want to be with my family. We talked through this, and we want to be here.
The biggest concern here is flooding. Sand dunes meant to protect the city were no match for the rising waters. Florida Governor Rick Scott.
The flooding in this area could potentially last for days, and river flooding could last even longer.
About 40 miles down the coast in St. Augustine, more than 9 inches of rain pummeled America's oldest city, submerging cars. Many residents have been trapped in their homes or businesses. This man on the porch of a bed and breakfast said 20 people were stuck inside. Wind gusts reaching at least 80 miles per hour tore through roofs, snapped power lines, and toppled trees. Magnolia Drive now completely covered with broken branches. An hour further south, Daytona Beach faced the brunt of the storm earlier Friday. Oh my God. The only thing protecting this home from the storm surge was a glass patio door. Many homes and businesses suffered significant damage. This gas station was leveled by the strong winds and heavy rainfall. As the storm heads north, residents will wait for the floodwaters to die down before starting to rebuild. And residents of beach-facing communities like this one are anxious to see how their homes fared, but the intercoastal bridges remain closed. It is estimated, Anthony, power won't be restored until midday Sunday.
Errol Barnett in Jacksonville, Florida this morning. Thank you, Errol.
Fatalities on America's roads are on the rise again after falling for years. This past week, the government launched a new effort to save lives. Here again, transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve.
53-year-old Judy Claiborne died after her minivan was hit by a driver who was texting. Her husband and teenage daughter were critically injured in last month's crash. Regulators say it's part of an alarming trend as the number of traffic deaths in the U.S. is accelerating. In the first half of 2016, an estimated 17,775 people were killed in traffic accidents. That's up 10.4% compared to the same time last year. And 2015 had already seen the largest increase in fatalities since 1966.
We put up with, in a permissive way, people talking on the phone, people texting. Even though 46 states have laws banning texting, do people stop texting?
Deborah Hersman is the former head of the NTSB and now runs the National Safety Council.
We're raising speed limits. We're repealing helmet laws. We're doing things that are making this death toll rise, and then we're asking, why is the number so bad?
On average, 30% of deaths involve drunk drivers, and not wearing a seatbelt is a factor in roughly half of all fatal accidents. Regulators believe distracted, fatigued, and drugged driving are likely factors in the spike.
We have an immediate crisis on our hands.
National Highway Traffic Safety Administrator Mark Rosekind says some of the increase is due to more Americans driving as the economy improves and gas prices drop.
People have been looking for a magic bullet. It doesn't exist. So we got to look for every tool we can. It's not just cars that can drive themselves or getting everyone to wear their seatbelt. It's more complicated than that.
In response to the numbers, regulators and the National Safety Council launched a coalition with the goal of getting to 0 traffic deaths in our lifetime. It's an effort starting with $3 million in seed money aimed at developing technologies and approaches to make the roads safer. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Washington.
Matthew is rumbling up the Atlantic coast. The Carolinas took a direct hit Saturday as the storm finally made landfall. At least 11 people in the U.S. have been killed. Nearly 2 million homes and businesses in 4 states are without power. We have the storm covered, beginning with Chris Van Cleve in South Carolina.
Matthew turned deadly in North Carolina, killing at least 3 there. The storm also brought down part of a pier in Oak Island. Hours earlier, it made landfall north of Charleston, South Carolina, knocking out power to more than 400,000 in the process. Parts of the Palmetto State are under a dusk-to-dawn curfew, as much of the coastal region remains under evacuation orders. Governor Nikki Haley.
Do not plan on going back home today or tomorrow. It is not going to be safe for you to go in.
Hundreds of roads were left underwater, including one leading to a major area hospital. Trees and power lines blocked others, but reports of substantial property damage remain limited so far.
Charleston had been bracing for a direct hit. That didn't happen, but flooding remains a major concern. Damage assessments aren't likely until sometime on Sunday.
I'm Jerika Duncan in Savannah, Georgia, where Hurricane Matthew broke storm surge records. Nearby on Tybee Island, sea levels were pushed to 12.5 feet. The previous record was set in 1979 by Hurricane David. Throughout Savannah, flooded roads are making it difficult for the National Guard and city workers to clean up trees and power lines brought down by gusts that reached over 70 miles per hour. Officials say around 75% of people here left the Savannah area. Many who remained are in the dark, waiting for their electricity to return. Police are still urging people to stay off the road. It's unclear when they will tell people it's okay to return home.
I'm Errol Barnett in Jacksonville, Florida. At least 6 reported deaths and widespread coastal erosion were caused by Hurricane Matthew's 9-foot storm surge and consequent flooding. Jacksonville received record rainfall and a highway near Daytona was partially washed away. But the governor and people we've talked to are relieved the storm did not make direct landfall here.
I want to thank people that evacuated and took this seriously, because I can tell you none of us up here want to see a loss of life.
Efforts to restore power to the 1.2 million people who had been without electricity since the storm approached continue. Rena, it is expected power will be completely restored by the end of the weekend.
And our thanks to our team covering the storm. Chief Meteorologist Craig Setzer is tracking the storm at WFOR in Miami. Craig.
The storm is just now a minimal hurricane, forecast to become a tropical storm and continue to weaken in the next couple of days. Then it moves off and just becomes a low pressure area out in the Atlantic. This is important because it earlier was forecast to swing back and possibly come back and at least impact Miami and the Bahamas, possibly just as a weak tropical depression. Here's the latest right now. Heavy rainfall continues across portions of the Carolinas. This is going to be the main threat. Freshwater flooding up to 15 inches, and there is a storm surge threat up to 7 feet across coastal sections of the Carolinas there. But fortunately, the weather will begin to improve tomorrow. Farina?
Craig Setzer in Miami, thank you. Matthew is weakening as it turns north, but the death toll continues to rise in Haiti, where the storm flattened several villages. Tony DeCopel has the story.
Hurricane Matthew slammed into southern Haiti, the strongest storm to make landfall there in more than 50 years, and now also one of the deadliest. The death toll has been rising since Tuesday, from an initial estimate of 5 to reports now of nearly 900, and still counting. In a cruel twist, the people least prepared for a hurricane got the worst of Matthew's fury. 145-mile-per-hour winds, as much as 40 inches of rain, and waves that leveled houses.
It took away everything. My house is destroyed, everything gone.
Throughout Haiti's southern peninsula, 80% of the homes have been damaged or destroyed. At least 350,000 people need help, and some remote mountain towns have yet to even be reached. Anna Konachik works in Haiti for the Red Cross.
We expect them to have severe damage, and that the major needs there will be shelter, clean water, sanitation, and other major health concerns.
There is some good news. U.S. Marines and other service members are on the ground. Hundreds more should arrive soon, along with a relief-filled ship called the USS Mesa Verde. But for the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere,
as you can see, we're waiting for help.
Relief is a relative term. And even before Hurricane Matthew, Haiti had more than 40,000 people in shelters, many of those there since the earthquake that hit Port-au-Prince in 2010. It's estimated that this storm could double that number or even worse, Rena.
Cholera has been such a huge problem since the earthquake. Do we think it's going to get significantly worse with this hurricane?
Absolutely. In fact, it already has. There have been 13 deaths implicated since the storm, all cholera related, and it's an extremely deadly pathogen. It thrives in contaminated water, and after a storm like this, Haiti has a lot more of that than it would like.
And how does the death toll from this hurricane compare to the earthquake?
Fortunately, so far, it's much lower. More than 200,000 people died in the earthquake. We're not quite to 1,000 with the storm.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that.